So today we're diving into something really powerful. It's a framework that gives us a whole new way to talk about the very real psychological weight of racism. It was developed by Dr. Shungu Magadza, and it's called the Prejudice Racism Survival Spectrum.
Okay, let's start with a question that might seem simple, but really isn't. What's the actual cost of a racist joke? You know, the kind that gets brushed off as just harmless banter. We tend to focus on the big, obvious acts of racism, but what about all the harm that we can't see?
And that unseen harm? There's a name for it. The million little cuts. It's such a perfect phrase, isn't it? It captures that slow, cumulative effect of all the subtle stuff, the microaggressions, the casual exclusions, that when they add up over time can cause some serious, lasting damage.
And that's where this framework comes in. It's like putting on a new pair of glasses to see those unseen wounds. It helps us get past this simplistic black and white thinking of racist or not racist, and instead shows us a whole spectrum of experiences and the real psychological toll they take. So what is the Prejudice Racism Survival Spectrum exactly? Well, think of it like a map. It's a model that Dr. Magadza designed to help people figure out what's going on, actually process it, and then find real strategies to push back against it. Doesn't matter if the racism is super subtle or totally in your face.
But here's where it gets really fascinating. This spectrum isn't just one straight line. It actually lays out two completely different journeys a person can take when they're dealing with racism. It shows this critical fork in the road, one path leading to trauma and the other to empowerment.
So, take a look at this. You can see the two paths laid out side by side. On the left, you've got the path of unaddressed trauma. That's a downward spiral through stages -1 all the way to -6. But on the right, you have the path to empowerment, a journey up through stages +1 to +6. Let's walk through them, starting with the path of trauma.
So, let's start with the tough one, the path of trauma. This is what can happen when racism hits someone and they just don't have the support, the tools, or the safety they need to process it. It becomes this downward spiral of escalating psychological harm.
And it doesn't happen all at once, right? It's a descent that happens in phases. It can start with denial, just kind of downplaying what happened. But then it can shift into this really dangerous phase of internalization, where you start to actually absorb those toxic messages. And if it keeps going, it can lead to a final stage of pure crisis, a total mental health breaking point.
Now, stage -3, self-rejection and trauma. This one is absolutely critical. It's the turning point where the poison from the outside starts to seep in. This is where a person starts to believe the racist things they hear, and they begin to reject parts of who they are. It can lead to this profound sense of alienation and even self-hate.
And the fallout from this, it's just devastating. We're talking about pulling away from friends and family, a total collapse of self-esteem, finding it impossible to trust anyone, and these deep, dark feelings of hopelessness. Symptoms of things like depression and PTSD don't just show up out of nowhere. They're being fed by this built-up racial trauma.
But, and this is so important, that is not the only path. This framework shows us there is another way. It's a journey of healing, of resistance, and ultimately of empowerment. It's the path that can take someone from being a victim of racism to a survivor and even a leader.
And just like the other path, this one unfolds in stages. But this time, it's an ascent. It all starts with awareness, just learning the words to name what's happening. From there, you move into healing and resistance, where you start building resilience and finding healthy ways to channel that anger. And the final phase? Advocacy and leadership, where you literally turn that pain into power for real systemic change.
Remember those million little cuts we talked about? Well, stage +3 is where a person finally stops and says, okay, this is real and this is hurting me. They recognize that all those constant little jabs are taking a massive toll. But here's the difference. On this path, that recognition is the first step towards healing, not away from it.
And what's the game changer here? It's taking action. It's about having actual survival strategies. At stage +3, that could mean anything from therapy and counseling to finding a community that affirms who you are. It's about learning real, tangible techniques to build resilience and cope with the distress.
And where does this journey lead? To something incredibly powerful. Stage +6, leadership and legacy. At this point, the individual is no longer defined by the racism they endured. Instead, they use their experience to take apart the very systems that cause them pain, mentoring others and creating real change for the future.
So when you put these two paths next to each other, the core message of the survival spectrum just becomes crystal clear. It's a roadmap for moving from just barely surviving the impacts of racism to actually actively thriving in spite of it.
When you boil it all down, this whole framework is about one thing: empowerment. As the source material says so well, it's about giving people the tools they need to navigate racism, reclaim their identity, and yes, turn their pain into power.
So, what's the big takeaway from all this? The damage from those million little cuts is absolutely real, but it does not have to be the end of the story. This map shows us that with the right education, with support from a community, and by taking action, healing and resilience are truly possible.
So I want to leave you with this thought. This spectrum, it isn't just a theory, it's a map. Now that you've seen it laid out, whether you've experienced racism yourself or you want to be an ally, just ask yourself, where can I help? Where can I help build a bridge from trauma to empowerment and help create that path to healing?